Earth vs. the Flying Saucers arrived in 1956, it wasn't just another alien invasion movie. Ray Harryhausen invented entirely new visual effects techniques just to make metal discs look convincingly alive. He built saucers from pie pans and radar parts, demolished the Washington Monument over 3 agonizing weeks, and hid battle damage in actual scratches and dents, from Sonovox machines making aliens talk to weather balloons replacing helicopters and endings rewritten to satisfy Cold War patriotism. Earth vs. the Flying Saucers is packed with bizarre production secrets. These are 15 weird facts about Earth vs. the Flying Saucers, where 1950s paranoia met Harryhausen magic. Before we dive into the invasion, make sure you're subscribed and hit that hype button so others can discover these classic sci-fi secrets, and trust me, the wild production stories ahead are worth the journey. Now let's face the flying saucers together. Number 1. Harryhausen invented a new VFX method just for the saucers. Those spinning discs weren't animated like creatures or monsters. Harryhausen developed what he internally called saucermation, a custom stop-motion technique designed specifically for rigid mechanical objects. Traditional animation focused on organic movement, joints bending, muscles flexing. But flying saucers needed to feel manufactured, precise, industrial. He had to figure out how to make metal look like it was defying gravity without any visible means of propulsion. The challenge was maintaining perfect rotational symmetry while creating swooping flight paths. 1 degree off and the saucer would look wobbly, breaking the illusion instantly. He built special armatures with ball bearings that allowed smooth rotation while maintaining exact positioning frame by frame. This wasn't just adaptation, it was innovation born from necessity. Number 2. The saucer design was inspired by 1950s military radars. Harryhausen didn't pull his alien spacecraft designs from pure imagination. During World War II, he'd been fascinated by rotating military radar installations, those massive dish arrays that swept the horizon looking for incoming threats. He borrowed that aesthetic directly, those circular forms with mechanical purpose written into every line. Then he added rotating inner rings, concentric circles spinning at different speeds to suggest unknown alien technology at work. The genius was making something familiar feel alien through small additions. Audiences recognized the basic shapes from newsreels and defense footage, which made the spacecraft feel grounded in reality. Then the strange mechanical movements turned that familiarity into unease. It's the same principle that makes the best science fiction work. Start with something recognizable, then twist it just enough to create discomfort. Number 3. The destruction of the Washington Monument took 3 weeks to animate. That spectacular collapse sequence lasts maybe 8 seconds on screen. Harryhausen spent over 21 days bringing it to life. Every tumbling stone block needed individual positioning, frame by frame, to create believable structural failure. He couldn't just knock over a miniature. Real buildings don't fall like dominoes, they crack, twist, and fragment according to physics and engineering stress points. He studied actual demolition footage to understand how materials fail under their own weight. Each marble block had to rotate through 3-dimensional space while falling, catching light differently as it tumbled. Some days he completed fewer than 6 frames because getting the physics right demanded absolute concentration. One mistake meant starting the entire sequence over from the beginning. The meticulous effort shows in every collapsing frame. That monument falls with weight and consequence that still impresses decades later. Number 4. The film reused real U.S. military stock footage. Columbia Pictures operated on a tight budget, which meant creative recycling wherever possible. The production incorporated actual Air Force and Army test footage, especially missile launches and radar tracking operations. This wasn't laziness, it was smart filmmaking. Real military equipment photographed with documentary authenticity that no studio recreation could match. Those genuine rocket launches carried actual power and scale. Radar operators working real equipment moved with practiced efficiency that actors would struggle to replicate convincingly. The stock footage grounded the fantasy in Cold War reality, making the alien threat feel like it was really happening in the viewer's world. Sometimes the best special effect is simply pointing a camera at something real. Number 5. The saucers were made of aluminum pie pans and hand-built miniatures. Those gleaming spacecraft had surprisingly domestic origins. Each saucer was assembled from machined aluminum parts, some pieces literally adapted from baking tins and kitchen equipment. The aluminum gave them that polished metallic sheen under studio lights, reflecting and catching illumination exactly how real metal would behave. Harryhausen wasn't trying to hide the makeshift materials, he was exploiting their physical properties. Why spend hundreds of hours creating fake metal texture when you can just use actual metal? The pie pan approach meant every surface reflected light authentically because it was authentic. Sometimes the simplest solution produces the most convincing results. Just don't tell audiences they're being invaded by kitchenware. Number 6. The alien voices were created using a Sonovox machine. Those eerie mechanical alien transmissions weren't recorded through normal means. The sound designers employed a Sonovox, a specialized device originally developed to make musical instruments appear to speak. Musicians used Sonovoxes for novelty recordings, making guitars seem to form words or pianos to talk. The production team realized this strange electronic vocal quality was perfect for alien communication. It sounded technological but organic, like voices filtered through machinery or transmitted across impossible distances. The result was deeply unsettling precisely because it straddled that line between human speech and mechanical noise. You could almost understand the words, which made them more disturbing than complete gibberish would have been. The choice gave the aliens their own sonic identity, making them feel genuinely other. Number 7. The comic book adaptation changed the ending completely. Dell Comics released a tie-in issue to capitalize on the film's success, but comic writers took significant liberties with the source material. They rewrote major scenes, giving the aliens extended dialogue and altering character motivations to make the story more suitable for comic book conventions. The invaders became more sympathetic, their goals more understandable. Comic readers got a fundamentally different narrative than theater audiences, a parallel universe version where the same events played out with different moral implications. It's a fascinating example of how stories mutate across different media, each format demanding its own type of storytelling and each adaptation revealing what the creators thought their specific audience wanted to hear. We're halfway through this invasion, but the wildest production secrets are still ahead. From Pentagon miniatures built to exact specifications to endings completely rewritten for political reasons. If you're enjoying these behind-the-scenes stories from classic sci-fi, hit that like button and drop a comment about which fact surprised you most. Your engagement helps us uncover more forgotten movie magic. Alright, let's return to the battlefield. Number 8. The Pentagon's exact dimensions were recreated in miniature. For the climactic saucer attack on Washington, the production built a meticulously accurate scale model of the Pentagon using publicly available architectural measurements. They matched window spacing, building proportions, even the parking lot configurations. This obsessive attention to accuracy served a practical purpose. Audiences familiar with newsreel footage of the Pentagon would instantly recognize any proportional errors. The better the miniature matched reality, the more convincing the destruction would appear. It's that commitment to getting details right, even tiny details most viewers would never consciously notice, that separates memorable effects work from merely adequate spectacle. When you can make people believe a model is real, you've accomplished something special. Number 9. The film's script was originally much darker. Early screenplay drafts told a fundamentally different story. The aliens actually won, forcing Earth into occupation and subjugation. Humans became second-class inhabitants of their own planet, living under extraterrestrial rule. Columbia Pictures executives read these drafts during the height of Cold War anxiety and absolutely rejected them. They demanded a more patriotic victory ending where American ingenuity and determination defeated the invaders. The studio wasn't interested in demoralizing audiences with tales of inevitable defeat. They wanted reassurance, proof that humanity could overcome any threat through courage and scientific progress. The rewrite transformed a cautionary tale about technological vulnerability into an optimistic celebration of human resilience. It's a perfect example of how political context shapes entertainment. Number 10. Harryhausen hid tiny scratches on the miniatures to simulate battle damage. Instead of painting fake damage onto pristine models, Harryhausen took a more direct approach. He physically scratched, dented, and abraded the saucer miniatures so battle scenes would look genuinely destructive. Real damage photographs as real damage because light interacts with actual surface imperfections differently than with painted simulations. Those tiny scratches caught highlights and created shadows that sold the illusion of spacecraft being hit by weapons fire. It was destructive and irreversible, damaging expensive miniatures permanently, but the authenticity justified the vandalism. Sometimes you have to break things to make them look properly broken. Harryhausen understood that principle better than most. Number 11. Drone shots were achieved using weather balloons. Some aerial establishing shots required elevated camera positions that the production budget couldn't afford through conventional means. Helicopter rentals were prohibitively expensive for extended filming time. The solution came from meteorology rather than aviation. The crew attached cameras to weather balloons, letting them drift upward while filming the ground below. It was crude, unpredictable, and occasionally nerve-wracking when expensive equipment floated away on wind currents. The technique had serious limitations. Once a balloon launched, the crew had virtually no control over framing or composition. They were at the mercy of atmospheric conditions, wind direction, and pure chance. Sometimes the balloon drifted exactly where they needed, capturing perfect establishing shots of miniature landscapes below. Other times it wandered off course, forcing them to chase it down and try again. The camera rigs had to be lightweight and durable, able to withstand the stress of rapid altitude changes and potential crash landings. Several cameras were damaged or lost entirely when balloons burst prematurely or drifted beyond recovery range. But when it worked, the footage was spectacular. Those high-altitude perspectives added scale and scope that would have been impossible otherwise, giving the film a grand visual sweep that belied its modest budget. Sometimes the best technology is borrowed from completely different fields, and sometimes filmmaking is just controlled chaos hoping for lucky accidents. Number 12. The film's sound effects influenced later sci-fi hits. That distinctive shrill metallic saucer hum became iconic almost immediately. The sound designers had experimented with dozens of variations, combining oscillators, manipulated metal recordings, and electronic tone generators until they found something that felt genuinely alien yet mechanical. The result was unsettling in ways that pure noise or conventional machinery sounds never achieved. It suggested technology operating on principles humans didn't understand, familiar enough to recognize as manufactured but strange enough to create unease. Television producers recognized its effectiveness within months of the film's release. Shows like The Outer Limits borrowed directly from the audio palette, recycling variations of those distinctive tones when depicting alien technology or otherworldly phenomena. Early episodes of Star Trek employed similar sound design principles for their transporter effects and alien computer systems. The influence spread through science fiction television and film for decades, becoming part of the genre's fundamental vocabulary. Composers and sound designers treating those original recordings as templates, building variations that maintained the core uncanny quality while avoiding direct copyright infringement. It's remarkable how a single creative choice can echo through decades of science fiction, shaping audience expectations about how the impossible should sound. Those sound designers probably never imagined their work would influence the entire field, establishing conventions that modern productions still reference. Great ideas have a way of spreading far beyond their original context, becoming so embedded in genre DNA that newer audiences don't even realize they're hearing descendants of a specific 1956 innovation. Number 13. The aliens' costumes were extremely heavy. Performers sealed inside those elaborate extraterrestrial suits endured genuinely miserable working conditions. The costumes combined thick rubber insulation with aluminum structural components, creating oppressive weight and heat. A single suit weighed over 40 pounds when fully assembled, and that weight distributed poorly across the performer's body. The rigid aluminum sections dug into shoulders and hips, creating pressure points that became painful within minutes. Studio lighting made the situation exponentially worse, turning the suits into personal ovens. The thick rubber trapped body heat with no ventilation whatsoever, while the metal components absorbed and radiated heat from the powerful lights surrounding every set. Actors could only work for 5 to 7 minutes at a time before needing breaks to cool down and rehydrate. Several performers reported near-fainting experiences, dizziness and nausea from the combination of heat exhaustion and restricted breathing. The helmets limited peripheral vision so severely that actors frequently stumbled or collided with set pieces, unable to see obstacles beside or below them. Between the weight, the heat, the restricted movement, and the virtual blindness, performing in those suits required genuine physical endurance. The production schedule demanded these scenes regardless, so actors suffered through take after take, pushing through discomfort that would make most people quit immediately. It's a reminder that practical effects often meant practical suffering, performers enduring conditions most audiences would never appreciate or understand. Every alien movement on screen represented someone inside that costume fighting against heat, weight, and pain. The final performance looks smooth and alien, which means the suffering worked, but at a cost the credits never mention. Number 14. It was one of the first films to show UFOs attacking national landmarks. Decades before Independence Day exploded the White House or Mars attacks demolished Congress, this film pioneered the destruction of famous American monuments. The Washington Monument collapse, the Pentagon assault. These were shocking images in 1956. Audiences weren't accustomed to seeing their national symbols demolished on screen. There was something almost sacrilegious about it, violating the untouchable status these buildings held in the public imagination. But that transgression was precisely what made the invasion feel real and threatening. If aliens could destroy the Washington Monument, nowhere was safe. The choice to target Washington, D.C. specifically wasn't accidental. These weren't just buildings, they were representations of American permanence and strength. Watching them crumble suggested that nothing was truly secure, that even the most powerful nation on Earth could be vulnerable to forces from beyond. Early test audiences reportedly sat in stunned silence during the monument collapse sequence. Some viewers found it genuinely upsetting, not because the effects were gory, but because it violated an unspoken Cold War taboo. The studio worried briefly about backlash, but the gamble paid off. Audiences saw it as validation of their fears rather than an attack on American values. The monument destruction became the template for disaster filmmaking going forward. Directors learned you could generate immediate emotional investment by threatening recognizable symbols. It's why modern blockbusters still follow the same playbook, that calculated assault on iconic imagery this film pioneered nearly 70 years ago. Number 15. The film was loosely inspired by a supposed true story. The screenplay drew inspiration from a controversial book that claimed absolute authenticity. Major Donald Kehoe's Flying Saucers from Outer Space presented itself as factual documentation of alien visitation and government cover-ups. Kehoe wasn't some fringe conspiracy theorist. He was a decorated Marine Corps pilot, Naval Academy graduate, and respected aviation writer with mainstream credibility. When he claimed flying saucers were real and the government was suppressing evidence, people listened. His book compiled military pilot encounters, radar tracking data, and official reports that had been dismissed or explained away. Columbia Pictures recognized the marketing potential immediately. By loosely adapting Kehoe's research, they could suggest their film wasn't pure fantasy, but a dramatization of possible reality. The promotional materials leaned heavily into this ambiguity, asking audiences whether they believed the government was telling the truth about UFO sightings. It was a brilliant exploitation of 1950s flying saucer mania, when thousands of reported sightings and official Air Force investigations like Project Blue Book lent weight to the phenomenon. The screenplay borrowed Kehoe's basic setup, scientists making peaceful contact with visitors who turn hostile, but dramatized everything for maximum spectacle. Where Kehoe described vague lights and distant encounters, the movie showed massive saucers demolishing Washington. Some viewers left theaters genuinely unsure whether they'd watched pure fantasy or dramatized warning. Decades later, Kehoe's claims remain unproven, but his influence on UFO culture and science fiction storytelling is undeniable. He established the modern alien visitation narrative, the government cover-ups, and suppressed evidence that still dominate conspiracy thinking. This film translated that framework into visual spectacle, proving sometimes the best science fiction starts with someone insisting they're writing fact. The Flying Saucers wasn't just another B-movie alien invasion. It was Ray Harryhausen inventing new animation techniques while the production team solved problems with pie pans, weather balloons, and Sonovox machines. The film influenced decades of science fiction sound design, pioneered the destruction of American landmarks on screen, and tapped into Cold War paranoia with endings rewritten to satisfy political demands. If you enjoyed exploring these hidden production secrets, make sure to subscribe, because the next journey through classic cinema's strangest corners is coming soon.